Linda Hubbard sent me this quote, or gave me this quote, from the book Breeding Sweet Grass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I'm just going to read the quote to you. It says this: ceremony focuses attention so that attention becomes intention. If you stand together and profess a thing before your community, it holds you accountable. I had an acquaintance once who was a Catholic priest, and we were having a conversation about the value of extemporaneous prayer versus scripted prayers, and I've always been an extemporaneous prayer. I don't typically write them out, or I just kind of pray as I feel led to do that. And he was not. He always scripted his prayers and he wrote them out, and we were having a conversation about it, and he said something that always kind of stuck with me. He said when we write our prayers out, we write out not how we feel in that moment or what what we're thinking in that moment, but we're imagining what we want to be. And he said, and when we voice those things, he said the term, essentially, we fake it until we make it. That's what he said to me. And I remember at that time being kind of like, well, why would you want to fake it? That doesn't even make any sense. But the longer I've been doing this, the more that I realize that there's great value in those sorts of repetitions. We pray every week. We pray the Lord's Prayer together. Every week we say the same prayer of dedication together. Every week we say the same prayer for illumination together. And the longer I do this, the more I realize that there is actually great value in us saying these prayers in these sort of repetitious ways together. And I think this quote sums it up nicely in that the ceremony, the repetition, it focuses attention so that our attention becomes intention. That as we say these things together over and over, they start to speak to us in new ways that we don't necessarily experience if we don't say them in this sort of repetitious way. That there's some value in that repetition. If we stand together and profess a thing before the community, it holds us accountable. There's something important about us saying and doing these things together. There's something valuable in the accountability that takes place when we acknowledge that we don't give to God because we give to a budget. We give to God because of a shared sense of acknowledgement that God has done something on our behalf, that though our resources are limited, God's are not, that God can do something even with a small offering that we make. Those sorts of things, those reminders every single week, they have value. And so that's why we often say these sorts of things in repetition, that they speak to us when we say them over and over and over again. And so that's why we do it. It holds us accountable to those words and to one another in very, very important ways.